Welcome to the Karuna Life, a podcast dedicated to exploring the connection between spirituality and everyday life. I'm Gina Kitzmiller. I'm an intuitive, a Reiki master teacher, Akashic Records facilitator, and founder of Trimatri Reiki. As a longtime spiritual seeker, my goal is to help you navigate the complexities of the spiritual world, learn how to enhance your intuition, and lead a heart-centered life. Join me as we unravel the mysteries of energy work and metaphysical practices. We'll dive into high vibrational conversations with experts and personal storytellers and learn how to recognize and communicate with those in spirit. So get ready to embrace your inner mystic and explore the realms of the unseen. Welcome to the Karuna Life. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with Lisa Michelle Umina. She is an award-winning author, publisher, speaker, and podcast host. She is the founder and CEO of Halo Publishing International, and she has helped bring over 3,000 titles to life since 2002. Lisa is the author of several acclaimed books, including Milo and the Green Wagon and the anthology Shattered Silence, Stories of Loss and Healing. With more than 2 decades of experience in the publishing industry, she is a passionate mentor to authors around the world, offering expert guidance on writing, marketing, and self-publishing. Lisa hosts the award-winning Authors Podcast, where she spotlights powerful voices and shares insights from across the literary landscape. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. So, Lisa, thank you so much for being here.
Gina, thank you for having me, both as a podcast host and as an author of Elite Voices.
Yes. So for listeners who don't know, Lisa and I actually work together, and she is head of Elite Voices, which is who published my book, Soul Walk. And so I wanted to have Lisa on because I know there's a lot of people out there that have a dream of writing a book, either a children's book, a memoir, or a different type of book. And oftentimes as writers, we feel that soul's nudge, but we don't really know how to get from there to here. So I thought that her expertise in this field, she's got decades of experience, as I mentioned, would be really helpful to listeners. So Lisa, I wanted to start with asking you, what first inspired you to step into the world of publishing?
I'm not going to lie, maybe I was pushed a little bit. No. I had my own career as an author. I was doing school visits. It started locally in Cleveland, Ohio, and then it went national. And then from there, I just developed a show as the Milo and Lisa show with a mascot. And I started landing newspaper, radio, big time in the media. And one person came out and said, there was many, but there was the one that stuck out the most that said he wanted to publish a book. How does he do it? So I thought, well, great. I'll just spend an hour in a coffee shop, pay me $100, and I'll help you do everything I did in my way. This is like 23 years ago. So you can imagine there was nothing out there. So there was a lot of footwork and face to face, which I love though, too. Sometimes I wish we were back at that time. But here nor there, I started just giving advice. And then my career led me to move to Mexico City after one of my books was translated in Spanish. I came to Mexico. I opened up the international doors of Halo Publishing. And I also own Ola Publishing, which publishes Spanish books, obviously being in Mexico, helping amplify the Latino voice. I believe this in our lives, like every single thing prepares us for the next moment, experiences to, you name it. And for me, it never was about, I'm scared. I take the risks. We say these, no guts, no glory. But for me, trying is the biggest thing. And if I didn't do those things, I wouldn't be sitting here in this meeting today with you or as your publisher, helping you to amplify your voice and your very, very important message.
Oh, thank you. I love that. So I have to ask, as you're talking about it, I know you're really passionate about this topic. What is it that you love about helping authors publish their book? You can tell, like, when you start to talk, there's this passion that rises up. So what is it about it? Like, you obviously met with that person and that really lit you up about helping them have their book published. Was that the spark that kind of led you to lean into this field?
Gina, for me, there's a lot of incredible stories. And sometimes in social media, we'll just pass by a story and then some that'll just touch your heart. I feel in publishing the same way. People come to me by referral. They find me somehow, some way, right? In 23 years, Google the company, but I still get on the phone. I still meet face to face because I love it. That's what I am passionate about. And for me to have this opportunity to help someone, where traditional publishers are so big, they're looking for the next A list author, right? It's the Kim Kardashians or what have you, right? So you find these diamonds in the rough, right? And they have this incredible story, but they're very passionate, like me, about sharing it, about building it. So for me, I look at my life and I reflect back, first, yeah, it was about getting as many books as I can published every year. Now it's so different for me. I'm very selective of who we want to publish, the stories that we want to put out there with our name and that partnership. But it's really about making a movement. I really get goosebumps, when I think about, wow, this story's out there now and it's selling, and this author's speaking now, and this author's doing so many, partnering with nonprofit organizations. Like, this whole huge career is at the fingertips once you have a book in your hand, and you can do so many things with that book. So for me, I love to find that and be a part of that movement and helping the author build this legacy.
That makes sense to me. And I know as a newly published author that I thought that writing it was going to be difficult, but it's really that from, trying to figure out the world of publishing. And there's all these things that I didn't know that it was actually much harder afterwards. Like the writing part is difficult, but then there's this other chapter that you don't even know exists in terms of trying to get it out there and writing proposals and research and all of that. That's incredibly overwhelming. What would you say to those people who are out there that have that little spark, that little dream, that want to tell a story, but feel that bit of resistance or hesitation? Because I know for myself, even when I went to look at all the memoirs at Barnes and Noble, they were all these famous people. And I had that moment of like, oh my gosh, how could I even put the story out there? Other people have already done this. And I had that little bit of imposter syndrome. So, what would you say to someone who's struggling with that hesitation of, do I tell my story?
I think everyone has that, even including me. I think someone had said to me back when I left a full time career, which I don't recommend, into pursuing my own personal dream. I was afraid, I was nervous. But what if I didn't do it? And I think that's what we have to ask ourselves, is that if you can change one life or inspire one life or hold someone's hand through your story, for me, for Halo, right? The books that we publish, I think that's huge. And I think you should look at not so much how you feel, how the other person will receive it. What's the takeaway? If you share in that story, and you can see so many books today are out there to help someone get through a divorce, losing a loved one. Things like that are so important that, especially in social media, we're in this digital world. It's like we're losing that connection, that human heart in this. So if we can still, right, if we could still share an experience so that we can help, I think you can say this out loud too for yourself. It was very hard for you to pen your story because you had to relive it. And for me, I think that took a lot of courage. You being afraid, of course, you're afraid. This is you're exposing, you're being very transparent. But literally, and if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't it weeks later that your book got this attention and won an award and the cover and everyone's like talking about it? So what if you didn't do it? And I think that's what we have to ask ourselves. What if I don't do it? Then you're going to die with the story inside of you, and you could change so many lives, and so many things can happen from it. I mean, I look back, I was in mission work and speaking in front of audiences of thousands of people standing room only, all because I wrote a children's book. And we know there's a million children's books out there. So why would I want to do that? Right. But you find your niche, you find something that makes you unique. And when you have that, and you won't know that until you take that first step.
And I think that for a lot of people, that's what makes it special, right? Like that's if you feel
Yeah.
called to write a children's book, there's a certain, I would say, obviously with what I do, there's an energy, there's a resonance in it. And it's important. It's important work. It's important for the child that reads that work, that feels your energy, the intention behind it. And I know that obviously there's conversations around AI, and I just think there's no heart in that. There's no
Mhm.
energy in that. It might be able to write a book, but there's no person behind it. There's no soul behind it. So for me, it's two completely different things. And my goodness, we certainly need all the help we can get in terms of
Yes.
children's books. And And also books that tell stories. And the people that I know personally who have kind of these memoirs like kicking around or they're actually working on them, they're really important stories. And each one has a very distinct take. It has a distinct story, a person behind it that is going to make it different. So I do think there could be thousands, as there are, and thousands of memoirs and different stories, but yet each one is going to find the right reader because of the resonance. It's going to be different.
Well,
So
tell us, Gina, you've published your book and you've got obviously reactions back, comments back, and obviously that's affirmations that you're on the right path, doing the right thing. How do you feel about that?
It was really overwhelming in the best way. Like it was one of those like moments where you put something out and you kind of wait and then this response, it made me cry. I just was so overwhelmed that my gosh, like people actually even want to hear this and to even hear this chapter of my life and for people to say it was helpful. And what's interesting to me is that there's different parts of it that have been helpful. And someone recently had said, gosh, I just recently lost a pet. And you talk about in your book, like when you had to put your dog down. And I really resonated with that. And I didn't even really think about that. Like when I included that in the book, it was just part of my story of that, like kind of chapter that I was walking. So it's you just never know what's really gonna land with someone, or maybe that was the day that they needed to pick that book up and something you said, kind of directs them or lights them up in the way that's needed, and I think that's what's kind of magical about it, really.
And it is, and I think when we look at putting our book together, the manuscript, right, and how hard that is to say what stays and what doesn't. But for me, I always tell people that contact me, even if they haven't signed with me, please don't delete anything yet, because people try to write to meet a word count or they try to delete to meet a word count. I'm like, wait, you're missing the whole assignment here. And for me, you could be taking out, what if you said, well, I'm not going to put my dog in that piece in my book, but what you did was you started to unveil yourself and reveal parts of yourself so that you can connect with the reader. It wasn't like you're talking down to someone or that you were, like you said, this dictation, this robotic thing that AI brings to the table, which I'm sitting here and I think, gosh, could the world get any more robotic, right? Any more digital than it already is, but here we are. And so that's why I want to look for authors like you that have this authentic message that comes from experiences, because that chat can't do. Chat cannot have those experiences. And that's important. So for me, when you're putting your story, I think that's really important, is just to say, okay, it's got to be my story. And again, you can use chat to refine some things, assist some things, but you've gotta tell your story to keep it authentic so that the reader connects with you and not a robot, right?
I agree, I agree. So, let me ask you as a publisher, what are some of the biggest I can't even talk now. What are the biggest misconceptions about self-publishing that you would like to clear up?
Well, I think the biggest one is that people think they can get into traditional publishing just like that, and if they really understood that you need an agent, and the agent's gotta accept your work, and then the agent's gotta represent you, and then they're gonna go back to, "Well, who are you?" Right? And if you don't if you have, like, I'm not even on social media, what kind of chance does that look for you? So what I love about self-publishing is that you have an opportunity to share your story. You don't have to wait 2, 3 years or never to publish it, right? Now, I can't speak for all self-publishing companies, but I do know that what separates us and what we have this great, I think, legacy in itself with the 23 years that we have authors winning awards. And why? Cover design, having a professional editor. I go on Amazon, I can literally see, I mean, obviously I'm the expert in this, is who's used even a Word document for a cover for their book. So if you don't have all these elements in place, it's not going to sell. And for me, you're out of the market. So for self-publishing, people think too that they shouldn't have to pay for it. Who else? Well, what are we going to do with it if you're not going to invest in yourself? And if you don't even believe in investing in yourself, you just wanna send it off into a traditional publisher's hands. I mean, they're not gonna pay you anything for it. You're still gonna have to do all the work. You still have to show up to do signing events, social media, all the things you have to do for your career as an author, whether you're with traditional or not. So for self-publishing, I think it's a great venue to explore, obviously researching other publishing houses to see who's gonna really hold your hand through the process, who cares about the message, not just a word count and putting it out there. I think that's what we're doing. The integrity of Halo and Elite, just being there for the author and thinking, again, outside of the box for them and bringing those solutions to the table for you so you don't have to do it on your own through a KDP and winging it and trying to figure out, hey, this isn't working or I'm not selling books. So from my experience, I really feel if you've got a great story to tell, meet with the publishing houses and see who's gonna take it to the next level and really get you out there the best way possible, but listening to your needs and providing solutions for you to make it the book that you envision it to be.
And I know when I was doing kind of my homework and research with it, there's some good ones out there and there's some bad ones. And I'm sure you've heard that there's just some horror stories that when you start
Yeah.
really reading it, because I would sit and be like, okay, I'm going to read the reviews. And some of them I would just be like, nope, nope, nope. Or you would get these like robocalls where it's like the minute you put information in and it was like these high pressure sales tactics that I did not like that either. So it was quite a learning experience for me kind of coming through that. So let me ask you, so how can authors ensure that their book stands shoulder to shoulder with traditionally published titles?
One of the things that we have done, and we did this with you, and it was very successful, and obviously you won an award for one of the pieces, which was the cover. I can't stress enough the interior layout, the editing that needs to happen, and trying to avoid one of those steps to save money, it's the most craziest, costly thing you can do. So having all those things lined up, I love that we have a kickoff session where we really dive in, right? You have to do your homework. I want you to look at the covers, look at what you don't like, what you like, and then my team looks at all your notes, and I think that's the best thing that we do is just putting together a book that can win awards, right? You have a great story, but if it's not set up right or you don't have a cover, no one's gonna read that story. So you have to have all those steps in line to again, trying to get the award-winning book out there, but again, packaging your message the best professional way possible. So if we're winning awards nationally and internationally, we're doing our job right, because in traditional world, okay, it's a bestseller, it's out there for 30 days, and then you don't see anything anymore about it. So, I like that the author can just really get involved with the process. They're not in the back of it and saying, "Okay, I'm waiting for the publisher to get back to me. I don't know what they're gonna design. I have no idea what colors they're gonna pick," So for me, I love that we really connect with the author to listen to what they want, but then taking our 23 years of experience and putting it out there so that we give the author the best chance to become an award-winning best-selling author.
And I have heard stories of people say that they come back and it's, just some completely off the wall cover and it doesn't match what they're supposed to say. And you just go, oh my goodness. So that was, it was harder than I expected to do the cover, but like once it clicks, it just clicks. And so I do remember because it was like I had homework assignments of like, go and look. And that was very, it was exciting, but also a little overwhelming of trying to like, okay, what do I like? What do I feel like represents the book? Because we were talking about, and I'm sure you remember, we were talking about font and how do you do the back and what do you put on the back? There's all these little details that go into it that I hadn't really thought about. But yeah, I'm super pleased with mine. I'm like, I just love the cover. Every time I see it, it's like a hug.
Well, we love the book. We love the book. The cover was just the gift wrapping around the gift, right? So it really came out beautifully.
So for someone who's not familiar with self-publishing that's interested in it, can you walk them through a little bit about Halo's process so they like what that would look like for them?
Sure. So they submit a manuscript to us. We have a review committee. We review and make sure it meets our standards in our mission at Halo and Elite. From there, we have a meeting. We talk. We have publishing experiences. You select the one that fits your budget, fits you, all the needs, from marketing to design to distribution. And then from there, we assign the editor. The editor sends back the editing suggestions. We have tracking. They can accept the changes or decline them. Once you approve it, you go into production. You're also meeting with me. We're talking about the cover design, interior layout, fonts, chapter headers. Then the production team takes our notes, designs the book cover to cover, sends the author digital proof. The author reviews it, makes sure it's exactly the way they envisioned it. If not, we make the changes that we need to make sure it is. Then we partner with Ingram Distribution. It's one of the world's largest distributors. distribute to 193 countries and 40,000 stores nationally. So your book is live within 72 hours after you've approved your digital proof. And from there, we're setting up the marketing services and the distribution channels to making sure the book can be available when someone Googles the author, that they'll be on our social media pages. We're also designing the ads for the author so that we're doing this as a partnership and we're marketing the book.
And I know what my answer would be for this, but where do you think that new authors most underestimate the work in the process?
Because after the book is published, that's really when it all starts because you've gotta look at it, and you know that I also have coaching sessions for the author, so it's not like a surprise, right? Um, but what I mean by that is just it can be overwhelming, and I think this is where we can use ChatGPT, where we can go in with a plan and say, "Okay, now make me a calendar of 30 days. What can I do every single day to put in, some time into my book?" For me, there was nothing like this was out there, so I had to put together 1,000 events in 30 days. When I say this, I look back and I'm like, "No, really, I was somewhere every single day, sometimes twice between school visits, scholastic book fairs at night, parades, uh, weekends, the festivals." I mean, some places when I look back, I shouldn't have even been there, but I met friends and I met authors and I had consulted them and ended up becoming authors of Halo. But at the end of the day, it just was like, well, how do I know where my reader's gonna be? So I have to be everywhere almost. So I would just use this unique way and with now having this tool with chat to find ways that you could say, okay, let me look at different ways of presenting myself in unique formats instead of at a book festival where there's gonna be 100 authors, right? Again, that's a great, hobnob kind of, meet the authors, meet people. But I really like separating myself. And I think that was very successful for me is just thinking of unique ways of promoting myself. I did a lot of donations. I partnered with nonprofit organizations. So thinking like the sky's the limit and just saying, how can I get my message out there and who can I partner with? And I mean, the list is endless. For not to be overwhelming, that's why I say go back to putting down a calendar and maybe Mondays marketing, Tuesdays this, podcast this, do it recording in YouTube. I think what I would like to hear is that, okay, it could be overwhelming, and I know it is, but it's also exciting because now you have something to do. Now you have something to brag about. Now you have something to take care of. So I think the goal from start was, hey, if I can inspire one life from my book, so that means the whole social media platform's open to meeting and making those connections and plus your business. So if you have a business, you have your website, you're doing all that. And again, it's a lot of energy. And at one point, it starts to level out. And that's what I love. And then again, like you hit number one Amazon bestseller. You had your book award right away. So it was a little bit of like, wow, right at the beginning. And all of a sudden, it's quiet. So when it's quiet, that's when you gotta start working again and start making it, to just have some kind of plan every single day to getting that message out there.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. I often kind of felt like it was almost like you're birthing something, right? So it's
Yeah,
like this kind of this labor and it's very
yeah.
intensive and this like beautiful things born into the world. And then it's almost like you have this infant and it takes actually a lot of care in the beginning. It's like 20, you're on 24/7. And then it's like, okay, now you're starting to catch your breath, kind of get used to how the routine's going to be, and then settle in and you kind of find it
You
a
gotta
little
find your way.
easier.
You gotta find your way because I can't say this works for you when it doesn't work for you. Every message is different too, so it's gonna be a different audience. So you've gotta look at that, but as a mother, right? Even though you're taking care of the infant, at one point you're like, "Oh my goodness, thank God. My daughter's walking now. I don't have to," and it starts
Yes.
to happen the same way in social media. Wow, look at my following now. Now I've got 25 likes when I was really craving for 2 or 3 though when I first started. I mean, this is new. It's a new subject, it's a new territory for everyone. For me, you're so passionate about what you do in your message that it will start to gel together and find its way into what you need to be. For me, if you had asked me, "Hey, when you publish your book, what are you gonna do?" I had no clue. And all of a sudden, here I am with a mascot. Now I'm doing a show. Like, no, I didn't think that at all. I would be lying to anyone listening if you thought I had that plan when I was writing my book. you know,
That makes sense. Sometimes we just get it and go, okay, this works. So we're going in this
good,
direction.
right? Exactly.
I like that. That's awesome. So, can you share a story about an author who almost gave up or had some difficulty, but whose book still found readers and what made the difference?
Yes. So Lori Demonia submitted to our committee a story about two raccoons. It was about bullying. Of course, the issue years ago, as it is today, is a huge issue in schools, homes, you name it. And so the committee accepted it. I called her. I said, "You're accepted," and she's ready to move forward. And then we had a different process where you had to fill out this application. And in the application, she said she had two books. The other book was about autism. So I said, "Lori, before we move forward, can you tell me a little bit about this book that you're writing, or did you write it about autism?" "No, no, I'm not finished with it." And I said, "You know what? I'm not comfortable moving forward with this. And so what I would ask you to do is pray, talk to your husband, talk to your daughter, and ask them if you should be putting this autism book out there." She was a little upset with me, I'm not gonna lie. I was hoping she'd call me back, and she did. 2 weeks later, she was crying and laughing at the same. She's like, "Lisa, everyone says I should publish this book." So I had to finish writing it. I said, "Okay, read it to me." Oh my goodness. It's called Leah's Voice, and it is about, a parent and having a daughter and a sibling, who is autistic. But she went on to win a national award for Autism Society. She was asked to be a writer for the magazine. Her daughter was featured on the cover, the center fold, and it's still top 10 of autistic books in the world.
Really? That's
Yeah. So
amazing.
so maybe in that regard, I did push and stalk her a little bit to do it, but I did it for the team. No, and I have to tell you that you think, okay, the world's so big, but it's so small because an author just signed with us, and she's releasing her book. And, she said that she said, "Yeah, I read this book by Lori Demonia, and it really inspired me." And I said, "That's our book." And she's like, "Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's right. The logo, I remember this." And so it was just neat that she said it's a beautiful book, and it really is a good segue in teaching her students about autism. So I think, here's an author like we talked about earlier who was scared, who didn't want to do it. And again, this is the most beautiful part that I get to witness, and the author does too, that sometimes, most times, our stories become bigger than us. And that to me is the greatest thing because this is not about the awards. It's not really what it is that someone takes a risk. Someone is transparent. Someone says, "Okay, I'm going to share this story and it's going to be hard." And I'm sure she cried a lot about going through all this and bringing the illustrations to life with her daughter. But in the end, she ended up writing two books, and she's a friend of mine today. But yeah, that Lori went on to do so many things. And again, it was, thank goodness, in one regard, she was afraid, but sometimes the biggest things that are made are because of fear. So I
Wow,
love
that's
that
a
story.
powerful story. That is a
Such a
really
powerful
good
story.
story. My
Yeah,
goodness.
really is.
So, for the writer who feels overwhelmed when they're maybe in the process right now of writing the book, and I know for myself, it took me over 3 years to write mine, and life would get busy with kids and it would kind of start to slip away, and then I'd have to kind of refocus. What do you think the next step that they could take that you would recommend? If there's just one thing that you were like, here's in my experience what I would recommend for them.
Well, I think you said something really important. We have to be disciplined when something's important. And for even me, I'll say this out loud. Sometimes I have to write some prologues or forwards in books, and it's the hardest thing to really sit down and do it. But once I'm in it, I mean, I'm like 100 miles an hour, right? One thing is you've got to set deadlines. I think how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you feel that this is something that's really important to you, of course life's gonna get in its way, and you're gonna allow that. It took COVID, right, for us to put a pause. We're not gonna get those every year, and thank God. But for me, if you can just discipline yourself and put together some type of timeline. Hey, I'm going to do a chapter a month or a chapter a week, depending, I don't know how many kids, how many things you're doing, full-time job. If you could do that, right, you can easily have a book in 6 months. You can discipline yourself to say, okay, I could do a chapter a week or a chapter every 2 weeks. And I also think, which is really cool, sometimes thinking of a cover first. What would be the cover, right? What's the design of my legacy going to look like? Having something like that can motivate you. Putting together chapter headers, that's a lot easier, right? To have some type of blueprint to say, okay, right, we're thinking out loud, oh, I want to go this direction. All of a sudden, now you're down this whole rabbit hole going one way. And now you're like, wait, that's not the whole book. That's not going to be the whole book. So having the chapter headers could be an interesting, those could change too, but at least gives you the direction of what is my takeaway for every chapter that I write? And going back and saying, okay, and rewrite it a little bit, just put it all together first. Just get it out, right? As an assignment in school. And then go back and try to re-edit and think, okay, does this really go? Is this chapter, and like you did, like with your dog, is that really going to fit in my story? And obviously it does. So putting that time together, set again, put in your schedule if you have to. It's a me time. I have to go. I remember one author said that she had to go to Walmart. She was in the parking lot in her car. She said, "This is my office. I have 3 babies. I cannot write at home." And I just thought that was so cute, but it is. It's just something where put some music on, a piece of your house is yours. This you have your office right there, but that's your center, right? So this is when you walk in that room, that's what you're gonna do. You're just gonna focus on you and getting this mission, this message out, right? And that's what I do is just having those deadlines.
I agree. Yeah. Having the blocks of time and kind of schedule them in, because if not, of course, like things get busy and the next thing you know, it kind of slips away. So for me, it was
Yeah,
always usually in the morning when the kids were, got the kids on the bus, get a cup of coffee and sit down so that you can start to write and have that block of time. Because if not, the day will just get away
just
from you. And,
goes.
and
It
then the
does.
next thing you know, it's weeks and months.
Or
And I
years
had a few
later.
of those too. Yeah. I think that with anything, especially with dreams, the more energy that we put into them, the more that we start to pull them, towards us. So it's like seeing, like you said, the cover, seeing the finished product. Like, what's the response? How do you feel when you're holding that in your hand? And imagining that really helps put some energy into it. Because if you don't, then even with my book, I would notice if I went through a period where I wasn't working on it in like weeks, potentially even, I think there was one time, I think I even went a few months, but you start to feel the energy start to kind of pull out of
Yeah.
it because you're not investing in it. So I do think it's important to be consistent and to really kind of stay on task with it and keep asking yourself, like, what is your why? And if once I would return to that, it would like light back up again. I would get excited and then I would be more motivated to take those, hours and schedule that into my week to make sure that it got done. And of course, now I look back and say, absolutely, it was worth it.
Well, you look at too, and I can go by working with authors in my own story, is that if I didn't set up that time, and for me, it was more of a medical issue. I had to stay home because I had vocal cord issues and surgery. So I was kind of forced to stay home and write that story. I'm going to be very transparent when I say that. But but what if I didn't write that? What if I didn't discipline myself to write that? I mean, awaiting you on the other side? So for me, like look at that too. Not maybe not just even the cover of this, is that legacy you're gonna create and how you're gonna feel after. Like that's a good thing. It's like showing up at the gym, right? When you get in the first day, you kind of want to walk in the mirror and go, "Oh, it did it. What did it?" It's a lot harder than that. So afterward, like, why didn't I do this sooner? Like I feel great, look great. So the same thing with the manuscript. Wow, this is the most beautiful thing I can give to the world, and it's right here, and all I have to do is put out an hour of time, my day or my week, right? Depending how fast you write it, depending on how much it comes together for you, but discipline's the biggest thing in anything we do, and, we have to show up for life, we have to. It can't just be this mundane routine of putting our feet on the floor in the morning and brushing our teeth and going to work and coming home and eating and go to bed. It's gotta be bigger than this. We only have one life, right? It's not dress rehearsal. So you've gotta sit down and say, "Okay, this means the world to me to share it with the world, and I'm gonna make it happen this year. Here's my deadline."
I like that. So if you could leave one note on every author's desk, what would it say?
Hmm. Your book is not the end of your story. It's the beginning of your movement.
Ooh, I like that. That's beautiful. I'm going to just sit with that for a minute. I would have to agree with that. It really does think, and I'm sure you see this all the time, but that things really start to open up and move in ways that you really can't predict or expect. That there is something about it that when these projects, I think, and these dreams get born into the world, I really think that that's where the magic happens. So,
It truly does.
okay. So if there's anyone listening that wants to connect with you or learn more about Halo or Elite Voices, how can they find you, Lisa?
I think the best way is to go to the website, halopublishing.com. We have a form you can fill out. We wanna know about you. We wanna learn about the book that you're putting together. If you just give us a little bit of a synopsis, and then I will personally reach out to you and set up a time to meet with you and talk about your project and see where we can take it together.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. I want to be respectful of your time, but this was so much fun.
Thank
So
you. Thank you
I
for having me, Gina, in your life and on your show.
Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you found this episode helpful. And as always, if you have any topics that you would like for us to cover, please feel free to email me, Gina@thekarunalife.com. I'd love to hear them. Also, if you liked this podcast, please consider leaving us 5 stars and following. We would be really grateful. So thank you so much and have a wonderful day.